dominant fan theories is the idea that Michael Bay's 1996 action classic The Rock is in fact the last chapter of Sean Connery's run as James Bond. It's a fun idea, but does the evidence support this theory? Well, in honor of The Rock's 25th anniversary, I've looked at the evidence in way too much detail, and I've concluded that not only does the evidence support the fan theory, it lines up so well that there is no doubt in my mind that this man is the same character who defeated Blofeld and Goldfinger. By the end of this video, I guarantee that you'll either agree with me, or you'll wonder why you spend 20 minutes of your life watching a cartoon penguin talking about movies. So let's begin. The Rock is the second feature film directed by Michael Bay. It's about decorated US war veteran Francis Hummel stealing a bunch of chemical weapons, taking hostages on Alcatraz, and holding the US government to ransom until reparations are paid to the families of the soldiers who died under his command. West Wing Chief of Staff Leo McGarry, FBI Director Jim Womack, and the Department of Defense enlist the services of convict and former British Special Forces operative John Mason to help the Navy SEALs break into Alcatraz, using his knowledge of the prison from when he broke out of it in 1963. Mason teams up with chemical weapons expert Nicolas Cage, no really, we're meant to believe that, to break into Alcatraz and disarm the missiles before Hummel's deadline. Now, almost since this movie came out, there has been speculation that Sean Connery's John Mason is in fact James Bond, and you can see why.
30 years ago, he was a highly trained SAS operative.
Mason was the British operative who stole the files.
Oh, I was trained by the best. British intelligence.
But is this just a coincidence, or is John Mason actually James Bond? Well, I'm here to tell you that he definitely is. But before we start, the obvious disclaimer for some fellow James Bond geeks. Although Never Say Never Again stars Sean Connery as James Bond, it is not part of the Eon Productions film canon or continuity. My argument is that the Bond shown in the 6 Eon films starring Sean Connery is the same person who appears in The Rock, so I won't be looking at Never Say Never Again in this video. So let's start with the most obvious hiccup in the fan theory, the name. See, if you pay attention, you'll spot that Sean Connery's character in The Rock is called John Mason, not James Bond. So how can they be the same person? Well, the most popular explanation is based on another fan theory that James Bond is in fact a code name for whoever takes on the role of 007, and that John Mason is in fact the real name of Sean Connery's James Bond. Now, I strongly disagree with this argument. The Eon films have consistently established that these are different actors playing the same character, and that character's real name is James Bond. Moore, Dalton, and Brosnan all refer to the death of his wife as shown in George Lazenby's OHMSS. Her name was Tracy Bond. She wouldn't marry a code name. In the Daniel Craig films, his parents' surname is Bond, and he is called Bond before he becomes 007. Putting this theory to bed once and for all, in No Time to Die, Lashana Lynch will play Agent 007 after James Bond's retirement. The code name is 007. The real person's name is James Bond. So why is Sean Connery called John Mason in The Rock? Well, it's simple. John Mason is the code name. James Bond frequently uses fake names.
Mr. and Mrs. David Somerset.
The name is James St. John Smythe.
I'm Mr. Arlington Beach, and you're Miss Stephanie Broadchurch here.
I am not.
You're gonna have to trust me on this.
He also usually has fake documents to support his cover identity. If we assume Bond was captured, then it makes sense he was processed under the name listed in his fake passport, in this case, John Mason. What supports this idea even more is the fact that in The Rock, Womack says this:
This man has no identity, not in the United States or Great Britain. He does not exist.
So after capturing Bond, they clearly ran the John Mason name through the system and got nothing, because it's not a real name. But if Bond was captured by the Americans, wouldn't the CIA or MI6 see to it that he got released? Well, not necessarily. We consistently see how M puts Queen and Country above the life of his or her agents, including Bond. If M thought that it was in MI6's interest for Bond to stay captured, then he would leave him there. We can assume this is what happened in The Rock.
Of course, the British claim they never...
Very good, I believe you. So you don't have to preach to the choir no more.
No, I'm not going back.